Police Sergeant Harry Tangye. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Harry. You're just listening to what Catherine had to say there about the response. So many questions about how this was allowed to happen within the NHS and why NHS bosses did not take these claims, these concerns, more seriously when they were flagged time and time again.
Yes, indeed. It is quite horrendous, hasn't it? And it's sort of gripped the nation about how alarming this actually has been. We're talking babies now who would be 7 or 8 years old. They would be enjoying going to school and developing their lives and giving all that joy to their families. So they're not statistics, and it's so important we remember that. And of course, just because babies collapsed and fortunately they were saved, some of those have got problems. So it's not just the question of writing those off as they're fine as well. So yeah, we have a huge problem here. I personally think it's every institution has one. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, you are going to get your Wayne Cousins, as in the police. You're going to get your Lucy Letbys, as in here. And fortunately, they're few and far between. But that's why it's all more important that we have these safeguards here. And you need, unfortunately, I'm finding it in these institutions. I've known in 30 years policing some cracking leadership, brilliant leadership. But I also realised that because of the grievance procedure, I'm wary. I've seen good sergeants chastised about the way they've dealt with stuff, and they're the ones in the dock, not the officer who needed to be taken a grip of. And I think it's career management rather than leadership that is far too common now. And I think there's this thing called moral cowardness and moral courageousness. It's managers desperately trying to reduce the negative effect against their unit and their department, which is moral cowardice, rather than actually sorting the problem out. I will throw it in there because I was speaking to a male teacher of a primary school, and he said, Harry, I wonder if this would have been the same if this individual had been a man. It's a controversial one, but are managers more worried about accusations of bullying, which is more likely to be headed towards a female being a victim of bullying? Not all the time. But have we got to really just let all our guards down and start being honest with each other and start bringing leadership back? That's
a really interesting point you make, the difference between management and leadership, and also whether the fact that she was a woman, NHS bosses were more likely to view her as a potential victim of bullying. They clearly protected her for a long time. They made the whistleblowers, the consultant paediatricians who were telling them something is not right here and we think it's Letby. And they didn't listen. They wanted to cover this up by the looks of things. So it is really quite extraordinary.
Maybe because this is such an unusual occurrence. These managers thought, well, it can't possibly be happening. Just put it to a mathematician. 25 out of 25 occasions of deaths and call them if you like. 25, 100% of those were with Lucy Letby there. The next largest figure was 6. And there were quite a few, about 4, 5, 6. 25. So it's those obvious clues that must say, look, we owe it to not hide it under the carpet. But I think perhaps it was these people thinking, well, it can't possibly be the case. And is it easier to get rid of the accusations than easier to sort the problem that probably isn't right anyway? That's the issue.
We've seen just how many people from her childhood have been staggered by the allegations and now the fact that she's been found guilty of these crimes. You know, she was a geeky girl at school, kind-hearted. No one thought she'd hurt a fly. She always wanted to be a nurse, but it just shows how we know so very little about some people who walk our streets and some people who work in healthcare, which is where we need to trust nurses. We need to trust our doctors. We need to trust that NHS bosses will listen to accusations like this and will listen to concerns and do something about this. In terms of the investigation that is now taking place, Cheshire Police have confirmed they're investigating the entire period she was working at this hospital. What should they be looking at in terms of the NHS bosses themselves?
It's a good question, because there's some culpability there, and they're going to be having a lot of, shall I say, meetings with the CPS and that side of things to really build a case, build the evidence. Because policing investigation is quite simple, really. You collect the facts. You don't have to make decisions and presume and you just collect as many facts as you can, and it goes to other people, such as the CPS, to then decide whether there's a sufficient evidence to proceed to court. And when it's in court, it's up to a jury to decide. So I've always said in policing, my job's easy, is to collect the facts. And so their job is to make damn sure they do that. And it seems like they're extremely highly motivated. And in fact, I think it was 10 minutes into having a discussion with the head consultant, Dr Brearey, isn't it, that they thought, blimey, there's a case, there's a job here, without a doubt. 10 minutes.
And just very quickly, Harry, is a life sentence enough for this type of crime?
I'm always a big, as far as Lucy, you get a lot of people saying, oh, it's mental health, mental health. So insulting for people with mental health to be accused that, well, you're potentially going to murder babies. This absolutely logically, clearly, and without emotion. And then I think it's for the jury and judge to decide what the sentence is. I'm keeping out of that, but they do seem to be rather lenient, don't they?
Yes, fair enough. Thank you very much indeed, Harry Tangye, for your time, former police sergeant, giving us his view on what has unfolded.